Hey everybody, welcome to DigitalOcean's JAMStacky webinar. All right, so today we are going to be talking about putting the A in JAMStack. Now, if you haven't messed around with JAMStack today, we're going to be talking all about what JAMStack is, how we can use it, and how it differs from how you're probably used to doing your applications. So hi, my name is Chris. I am community web manager at DigitalOcean. I founded Scotch.io, which is a front-end heavy tutorial blog for web development tutorials. And you can find me on Twitter, on Twitch, and YouTube as Chris on Code. Our agenda for the day is we're going to talk about what and why JAMStack and what the acronym even is. I know we've been saying jam all day, but we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the headless CMSs, which actually is the A part of our JAMStack. And we're going to be talking about generating a site. This can be a blog, an application, and I think we'll find that JAMStack can replace and kind of do everything that an otherwise, I don't want to call them older stacks, but a monolithic stack would be able to do. And that's kind of the strength of JAMStack, and we'll talk all about that in a second. Before we talk about JAMStack, I think it's very important to talk about how websites work. And this is definitely a learning experience for me when I was building Scotch.io. Scotch started as a WordPress blog, and it got zero traffic for about 8 months, and I just kept writing and writing posts, and it took about 8 months for us to see any sort of traffic. But traditionally, Scotch has been a WordPress site deployed to DigitalOcean since the beginning, and eventually, after 2 years, we kind of moved it up to a Laravel stack, fully custom, and we'll talk about building that and kind of how that works. So up until now, websites are kind of monolithic. And what I mean by monolithic, I don't mean it in a negative way at all. Think of your Laravel apps, your Ruby on Rails type apps. Basically, what I mean is that your front end and your back end are very closely tied together, very tightly coupled. So if you change one, it kind of risks breaking the other in the same sort of stack. And if we talk about the Scotch architecture, it's 2 DigitalOcean servers. It's an app server, which handles our, it looks like my slides weren't showing for the first 4 minutes. So I'm going to go back, show you the slides, just because I'm proud of them. So we're putting the A in JAMStack. Hi, I'm Chris, DigitalOcean, Scotch.io, Chris on Code. Our agenda today, what and why JAMStack. Headless CMSs is the A part of the JAMStack. And generating a website is kind of what we'll be focusing on at the end of this. And that should be generating an app as well, because we can do sites and apps and anything dynamic with the JAMStack. So how sites have worked, how Scotch has worked, it's a very monolithic type app. Front end and back end are tightly coupled together. And if we look at the architecture, we have an app server, we have a database server, all running on DigitalOcean, and they kind of talk to each other, and very tightly coupled server and front end. So let's talk about the problems I had building Scotch. Scotch quickly grew to about a global audience. We do about 2.5 million page views per month. And the problems that I found with just having everything on one server that was housed in New York is that things were tending to be a little slow for our global customers because they were so far from our origin servers. I also found out that maintenance was a little bit tough because of the way I was building things, and this is totally a personal issue. I have the best intentions when you start writing code, and sometimes it doesn't always work out to be the best app that you build. And these two problems are definitely what I want to talk about when we talk about JAMStack, because JAMStack is able to help me solve both of these problems pretty quickly. Those are the Scotch problems. It was slow globally, and it required a lot of maintenance on my end. And both of those things kind of took away from what I wanted to focus on, which was content and design. And I think that's kind of the competitive advantage for building Scotch. I think that's a lot of reasons why a lot of people came over to the blog and kind of stayed and read our articles, is because we had solid content and good design. And I want to thank all our guest authors and everybody that's ever read an article, contributed an article. Couldn't have done it without you all. All right, so we've talked about how Scotch is built, how kind of monolithic applications have been built. Let's talk about JAMStack. So the JAMStack is what we're all here to see and learn about. We have JavaScripts, APIs, and Markup. Now, you might be wondering what each of those is. Let's talk about the J first. JavaScript is the glue that facilitates getting content and generating our sites. So basically, JavaScript is the thing that encompasses this whole process of getting our content from our wherever we store our content. Right now in Scotch, it's a database. And then JavaScript uses those APIs to get our content, and then it uses a generator to generate our markup. And in this case, we're talking about HTML. All right, let's talk about APIs, getting all of our content and data from a REST API or GraphQL. The cool thing about this is that you can call any data source your API, right? So if we have our database and we built an API around our current database, that would be our API. That would be where we get content. All right, so next up we have Markup, which is the end product that our customers will see in their browsers. In this case, it's HTML. The M part of JAMStack is what helps us solve the speed of our websites and our applications, because whenever somebody would come to Scotch before, PHP would have to start itself up, go grab data from our database, use that data to render a view, and then finally spit out that view. And I know it's not the longest process, but that 250 milliseconds, 300 milliseconds adds up over time. Wouldn't it be great if we could just pre-build the HTML before our customers ever came to the browser, and they would automatically just see the HTML as quick as possible with no processing server side? Static websites is very important to the JAMStack, and static is very important to speed. JAMStack benefits, Jamifits, better performance, higher security, since we're just sending an HTML file. We're not doing any server-side processing on every single visit. And I know you can talk about caching on the server side, but giving a static site is the ultimate cache, I guess. Cheaper scaling, it's far easier to scale serving HTML than it is to serve a PHP server-side application, PHP Node, Ruby on Rails, whatever you want to do. HTML will still be cheaper to scale that because you're just handling more requests. And a better developer experience, and this I will definitely touch on in a little bit, because you have to focus on just a couple of the parts. So you can have a front-end developer that just focuses on the M, you can have a back-end developer that just focuses on the A, and all of them can speak JavaScript so they can intermingle and talk to each other. Let's talk about how JAMStack works in the Scotch architecture. If I were to rebuild Scotch today, which I am very tempted to do, I don't know, rebuilding is so fun for me. We've rebuilt Scotch like 9 times in 5 years. But here we go. We have a database server and an app server. I kind of switched them around. Those two together inside of a JAMStack architecture would live in a server. And then your front end has been decoupled, so it's completely separated from your back end. And the way that you can separate your front end and create a static site, we'll talk more on this, but a good one to use is Gatsby. And Gatsby will use JavaScript to generate your application front end, your M on that side. So all this database and app, if you're working on the front end and you're a front end developer, do you really care about what's happening in this blue box on the side? You don't. So really, your APIs is where you get all of your data. And if we take this a step further, your APIs can be seen as what's called a headless CMS. And what I mean by headless, we've all dealt with CMSs. WordPress is probably the most popular one. A headless CMS just means that the front end has been completely decoupled, and the CMS, all it does is handle your data, give you a dashboard for you to work in, and spits out that data through an API. So now you can see the backend and the front end have been decoupled. It's JavaScript all the way around. And if we talk JAMStack benefits again, it's static, which is speed, and separation, which is a better developer experience. Let's take this a step further. What's so fancy about the JAMStack? And that's me in emoji form, I guess. It lets me focus on what's important. So one of the problems I had when I built Scotch, how would I rebuild Scotch today? One of the biggest problems I had is I built my own CMS, and it was probably the biggest time waster that I have done on Scotch. All those months that I focused on building a CMS, building a WYSIWYG, which I would never recommend to do, is time that could have been spent on content. I could have been writing content and working on design, which is our main value adds to the site. Focus on content, fully static gets us a faster website. So let's talk about that headless CMS thing. You get the CMS, you bring your own front end. And the front end is kind of where you get to focus on the CMS. You don't have to worry about building a WYSIWYG, right? There have been many WYSIWYGs that have been out there. There have been many dashboards that have been created. It's best to focus on what makes you and your product important to your customers. So if you want to check out a place where you can see a bunch of headless CMSs, headlesscms.org is a good place. It'll show you a bunch of different websites and different places you can look for headless CMSs. Let's talk about some popular ones. We have WordPress, Ghost, Contentful, Prismic, Strapi, and this list goes on and on. You'll see that on headlesscms.org if you go to that site. There are tons of them. So let's talk about using a headless CMS. And I thought about rebuilding Scotch, and I said, okay, what headless CMS do I want to use? Because I'd never want to build a CMS ever again. And the first question you ask is, okay, well, how much money do I want to spend monthly? If Scotch is pulling in 2.5 million page views, it could probably get expensive for some of these. WordPress runs at $25 and this is their base plans. So just getting started, if you have a blog that has zero traffic, some of these have free tiers, but usually you're going to end up with one of these like basic tiers. Ghost at $29, Contentful at $39, Prismic at $7, Strapi at $0, and Strapi is really fun. We'll talk about that in this webinar. And my number's wrong there, but that's supposed to be higher. Ghost runs at $199, $879, $500, and Strapi is pretty cool. But you can see that once your traffic starts getting up there, your price that you pay starts getting up there. And now you're kind of locked into a CMS that you have to keep using for the life of your product. You can switch out, but it probably won't be the easiest thing. And then once you get to the enterprise level, their $ it says, call us, call us, call us, call us, call us. So I looked at headless CMSs and I said, okay, well, these are cool. Maybe I'll use one of them. I also want to check about if we can self-host our own CMS. And the benefits are you get to keep your data. It's your database. You can look into it and export it whenever you want. So headless CMSs that are able to, you can download, install them, and use them as your API. We have headless CMSs for WordPress, Ghost, and Strapi are kind of three big ones. There are some other really great ones like Statamic, which is coming out with their V3. And I would say these are the big ones. So where I want to go in this webinar is I want to talk about installing all three of them and using them to build an API. And then we're going to use that API, which is our headless CMS. We're going to use Gatsby and create a website with these. So we're almost through with the slides. Bear with me. We're going to get to the coding and terminal and all that good stuff. So if I want to install any of those three, we have DigitalOcean's one-click apps. Very helpful because I want to be as quick as possible when I want to install Headless CMS. I want to focus on my content. I want to focus on my design and not stray from those two things that are important to our users. DigitalOcean has a ton of these. You can go to marketplace.digitalocean.com and look up which ones you want to use. And you can one-click and you'll immediately have any stack that you want on there. WordPress is in this image. Docker's also here. And we're going to be using those three one-click images. The benefits of self-hosted. We talked about this a little bit. Own the content. It is less expensive because you're not paying to scale as far as, like, let's say Contentful ended up being about $900 a month for a certain amount of page views. Here, you're just paying for your server on DigitalOcean, which you can tier yourself. It can be, $20, $10, $5, and upwards to $300 and more. So you get to pick the size of your application and you get to keep it there, and you will always know kind of what your fixed pricing is, which is really great. Fun fact, Scotch, for the last 5.5 years, has been working on a $20 DigitalOcean droplet, and it's performed admirably. All right, so let's create apps. Let's actually do some stuff. We are talking about the JAMStack architecture, so we are going to focus on the Headless CMS section right now, and then we'll come back to our slides and we'll focus on the front end side in a bit. So let's close this out. This is Keynote, where I use create my slides. Jamstack.org is a really good place to kind of see more about the Jamstack, and I'll leave that there in the chat. DigitalOcean is where we are going to create all of our droplets and our servers and use our servers to host WordPress, Ghost, and Strapi, which is our headless CMS of choice right now. So there's a marketplace link up here. There's also your dashboard. If you have created a DigitalOcean account, go ahead and do that. It's free to do so. You can go here to your dashboard and see I already have 3 right here that I was messing around with. Something to note as well is I already have 3 domains, which we'll use when we are creating our droplets. All right, let's get forward and start making these droplets then. So if we go over here, we have managed. DigitalOcean has a bunch of great products. Droplets is where we want to focus. If eventually your Jamstack app started growing, you could bring in databases, you could bring in spaces. Right now, droplets is where we're at. You go down to Discover and you hit Marketplace, and we can see all of the one-click apps that we can use. Strapi is right here in the kind of upper list. Let's go with WordPress to start. And we'll scroll down to WordPress, blogs and forums. All right, so we have this here. It kind of tells us the version numbers that we're going to be using. PHP 7.2, good old PHP 7, good new PHP 7. And we have instructions on how to get started. We're going to walk through this right now. If we go up, we go create WordPress droplet. And this is much easier than it used to be before if you wanted to, self-host WordPress or Ghost. So these one-clicks are very helpful. We've chosen WordPress. We are going to use a standard droplet. There are different types of droplets that you can use based on your applications. Standard will be good for us. You could check out your size that you want, 5, 10, 15, all this good stuff. We're going to stick with the default 40. I'm going to go down here. You can pick your data center. So you definitely want to pick something that's closer to your users. But also, since we're going to have a static site after this, this isn't the most important as far as the sending page views to your users, because they'll be able to see it statically and quickly from wherever they are. All right, good old features. SSH keys are important. We'll add this. These 2 are my 2 work computers. We'll go down 1 droplet. I'm going to leave this here. Actually, let's rename it. jammy jam. I'm not very scientific with these. And we'll go down, create droplet. We will let that do its thing. It won't take too long. And again, if anytime anybody has questions, comments, just throw it in the chat. I am watching it. My colleague Ryan is watching it as well. All right, so WordPress Jammy Jam is here. Let's click into it. Cool. So I'm going to copy this IP address right here, which is the IP address for our droplet. Let's go take a look and see what it does. It might still be working and booting itself up. There we go. Just refreshed a few times, and here we are. Please log into the droplet with SSH to configure your WordPress installation. Cool. So let's go back to DigitalOcean. Where are those settings? Let's go back. There were setup instructions right here. I'll click that and scroll down. All right, getting started. This is kind of all the stuff that it comes with. And to get us started, we have to SSH root at all this good stuff. So SSH root, let me go grab terminal real quick. iTerm. I hope that's large enough font. That should be good. And then let's maximize it. Cool. So Batcave is where I do a lot of my work. SSH root at, and we're going to paste this in. Go grab it back again. Go to my droplets. WordPress Jammy Jam. I'll just copy this IP address, come back over to iTerm, and paste that in. So now I'm logging into my new droplet using my SSH key that DigitalOcean added to it. I'll type in yes. Domain subdomain name. This is so that we can add HTTPS to this whole thing. I'm going to go over. I know I had domains here. Let's go networking. I had 3 domains that I've just thrown in for fun. Codehearted.io. I'll add this one. Codehearted.io. All right, email address, so we can set up all this good stuff, digitalocean.com, and I hope that's large enough. Now we will create your new admin user account for WordPress. Cool. Username, Chris. Password, I'm going to type in password. Blog title, Jammy Jam. Information is correct, yes. Let's encrypt, yes. Let's see. Enter email address so that Let's Encrypt can use that. Okay. And finally, terms and services, terms of service. Agree. Would you be willing to share your email address? No, thank you, right now. Okay, so now we're saying, okay, which ones do you want to activate HTTPS on? I'm going to say both of these. Select them by entering the numbers separated by a common space, so 1 and 2. Enter. Okay, so Let's Encrypt is doing its thing to make sure that we can get our HTTPS stuff we're rolling. All right, installation complete. Access your new WordPress site in a browser. Let's go check it out. Codehearted.io. Oh, actually, there's one step I miss. I always miss this one. We have codehearted.io, and we have our droplet, but we have not pointed Codehearted to the droplet. So if you come down here, we have named servers, which is cool. And to prove it to you, we'll go codehearted.io. Site can't be reached. It doesn't really do anything. Let's try the IP address. And that is our WordPress site. Now, it doesn't look good because, and I'll show you why, right-click, inspect element. There are console errors here. I'll go to console. And notice how none of these things are working. It can't find our CSS. It can't find anything because it's trying to do it at codehearted.io, which doesn't really point to the droplet just yet. So we're going to go over here. Where is my dashboard? We're going to say @ So the @ is going to handle all codehearted.io. If anyone types that in, it'll go to this droplet, WordPress Jammy Jam, create record. And then I'm also going to do it for the www and point that to WordPress Jammy Jam. Create record. All right, so now we have our networking done. That's all we have to do to set up our domain to point to this new WordPress install. Okay, so droplet created, networking created for our domain, and it points directly to this. Now let's see if this, let's see how fast that worked. Refresh on codehearted.io, not working just yet. There we go. So it took maybe what, 30 seconds for that to work. Here is the link if you all want to check it out in the chat. So all in all, I think that took us about 5 minutes to get a WordPress site up and running. Let's go back to this, and there's something else that we can do to make sure that our HTTPS is working, because right now it is not secure, you can see. So we want to just say, hey, WordPress, redirect all HTTP requests to HTTPS. So I'm going to go down here. There's somewhere in here, the instructions. It's down here at certbot. We'll add a heading to that. But certbot -- Apache, and I hope this is large enough. So this is basically going to say, tell all traffic to go HTTPS based on all this good stuff here. I'm going to copy all this. Actually, right here, copy that. Go back over to terminal, paste that in, and let's do, this is codehearted.io. And come back here, codehearted.io. All right, getting our certs, doing all that good stuff. No valid IP addresses. What are you doing? When in doubt, run it again. Okay. Well, that doesn't seem to want to work. Oh, it's only for the www domain. Let's go check out what's going on here. Refresh. Uh-oh, refresh. All right, well, let's see this wp-admin. We have our WordPress dashboard. We set up our credentials in the setup section. Chris, password, login. Cool. So no, I don't want to save this. No, I don't want to save that. And here we have our WordPress install, all the good stuff, right? We can also go to posts, see our first post called Hi Chris. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, I have my WordPress application. How in the world am I going to use it as a RESTful API, as a headless CMS? Well, this is pretty cool because WordPress automatically comes with the headless CMS part built in. We go codehearted.io/wp-json/v2/posts. I believe that was it. No, I got it wrong. Here, let's go headless CMS, WordPress. I want the WordPress official. Oh, here we go. WordPress REST API. Okay, so right here, using the REST API is what I want. This is a really good link to kind of read up on the REST API for WordPress. And the cool thing about this is that once we do this with WordPress, it won't be hard to switch out to Ghost or Strapi. So we'll go to the REST API here, and let's scroll down. Let's see, let's try this. Dash WP, oh, okay, here we go. I missed the WP part right there. So let's go back. WP-JSON, WP/v2.hosts. No, what's going on here? Give me 2 seconds. Good old live coding. Yeah, that should be correct. Uh-oh, this is where things get fun. WP-v2/v2/posts. Okay. Doesn't want to happen. Let's make sure that. Okay, so the www works, but it doesn't seem to want to do the certs or anything. Come on. Hold on tight. Nope. Okay. Annex domain looking for a record for www codehearted.io. I mean, I'm pretty sure a DNS record lives for this thing. So what I have found, and I know this is a cop-out, what I have found with DNS stuff is sometimes it just doesn't work as soon as you want it to. So what I'm thinking is we are going to, I had a backup plan just for this moment. Close, close, close. Now close, close. So here's our DigitalOcean control panel. I'm sorry, feel free to tell me I'm a lazy bum in the comments, but I have a backup for this special occasion. This one right here I created last night, 167.172.157.172. And the one I have pointing to this is, I believe it's angularbook.io. Yeah, so angularbook.io is one I set up yesterday with the same exact setup, but we're probably just waiting for DNS to happen. So angularbook.io / wp-json / wp/v2/posts. And now we have, now we have a REST API response for our WordPress posts. And you can look here, ID is 1, so that's our first post. Down here, title is Hello World. Content is this p tag right here, Hello World. Or sorry, welcome to WordPress. This is your first post. And to prove that this is real, let's go back to it, angularbook.io / WP admin. I can go to posts. I can edit this. I can say, this is welcome to Jammy Jam. We'll update that. All right, so post is updated. Let's go see how fast that takes WordPress to update this right here. Welcome to Jammy Jam. And refresh, and immediately we have that. So you can have your headless CMS, and immediately your API will update. All right, now let's talk about how we can use this in Gatsby, because now that we have installed a headless CMS WordPress and we have our REST API out of the box, we can hand off the CMS to anyone, even non-technical folks, and they can start writing content, all that good stuff. And then our developers can focus on the front end when they build their static site. Any questions up until this point? We have installed a headless CMS. We have been able to grab its data using an API. And now we're going to move over to the front end side, which is in this section, we're going to be using Gatsby. All right, moving along. Static site generators. We have our CMS. Now it's time to bring our front end. So Static site generator is going to generate our front end. Staticgen.com is a good place to go look for JAMStack type sites. Popular static site generators, Gatsby is React JavaScript. Hugo is for Golang. Nuxt is the one I was looking for. Nuxt is Vue and JavaScript. Jekyll and Eleventy all are great static site generators. The really cool thing about this is once you have your headless CMS, all of these can work by pulling from your headless CMS. So if I wanted to have Gatsby for 1 year and then switch out to Hugo the next year, you would not have to change your backend, which is amazing. All right, so that's popular static site generators. Let's go and see if we can't get a Gatsby site to use our new WordPress API. So let's exit out of here, clear that out. I am going to say Gatsby new jam. And we're going to let Gatsby do its thing. While Gatsby is doing its thing, let's go talk about Gatsby. gatsbyjs.org. And I'll post that link in the chat as well so you can click through. So Gatsby is a static site generator that uses JavaScript and React, which is a JavaScript library, very popular one. So how does Gatsby work? We have our data sources, which is CMSs, markdown data. All of this can be considered the A part of JAMStack. And in this area, we're using CMS, which is WordPress. If we scroll down, we have our build setup, which is going to use GraphQL, and Gatsby will grab all our data and generate HTML and CSS. And then all we have to do is deploy that static site that we have created with Gatsby. All right, now let's check out what's going on here. We have our new Gatsby site. CD, jammy, jam. I'm going to open it up in VS Code, which is my current favorite editor. And let's get some more real estate. So I'm going to hide the activity bar. I'm going to hide our status bar. I'm going to, I think that's good. Hope it's large enough. There we go. All right, so when you have a Gatsby website, you are going to start with Gatsby config. That's kind of Gatsby's main setup file. And let me zoom out on this. You have your site data here and your plugins. Uh-oh, that's a big scroll. Your plugins is kind of where we're going to set up WordPress to tell Gatsby that, hey, we want you to go grab data from WordPress. Okay, so Gatsby has plugins. A really cool thing about Gatsby is that there are a lot of plugins. The third-party ecosystem is very good. We can go over to Chrome again. Let's go up to our plugins. And let's search for WordPress. Where are you? Let's search for the whole thing, source WordPress. Here we go. So Gatsby source WordPress, and I'll leave this link in the chat as well. It's a tool for us to say, hey, Gatsby, I want you to go grab data from our WordPress site. Okay, so let's go ahead and install this thing. npm install save Gatsby source WordPress. I'm going to copy just the name of it. I'm going to go in here, and I am going to use yarn, clear please, yarn add Gatsby source WordPress. Okay, so now we have that. Let's go over here and let's follow some more instructions. We have our plugin. All we have to do is add this JavaScript object. So we're saying, hey, Gatsby, you should know about this plugin, Gatsby Source WordPress, and here's a bunch of options that you can use. Definitely look through this when you have a chance. I don't want to go through all of this, so I am going to go ahead and write ours right here. Gatsby config, we're going to scroll down here. I'm just going to add it to the bottom. We're going to go resolve is Gatsby source WordPress. Options is going to be base URL Angular book.io. This is the one we have working. Protocol is going to be HTTPS. Let me scroll down and zoom for you all. Hosting at WordPress.com is false because we are hosting ourselves on a DigitalOcean droplet. Use ACF is false. That's just a WordPress plugin, advanced custom fields. We're not using that. We haven't set it up, and we don't need it right now. All right, so this was enough to tell Gatsby, hey, this is where our data lives, and you should know about it. Gatsby also has a really cool thing that it does. Let's start closing some things out. I want to close this out. Let's start up our Gatsby website. We go to Gatsby, develop. Increase that. And let's see what happens when Gatsby knows about a new source. It actually goes ahead and pulls data from WordPress. Some things it can't do because of permissions like settings, which we don't really care about right now. Okay, so we can view our Gatsby site in browser at localhost 8000. Cool. Welcome to your new Gatsby site. And this is a static site that we can serve to anyone. So now let's talk about our data. We go back to VS Code, or sorry, go back to our, VS Code. Gatsby has a really cool tool to see where our data sources are. It's called GraphQL's GraphQL. So if I click this ___ GraphQL, it loads up GraphQL, which is basically a data browser. And we can go look here. All this stuff is coming from our WordPress site now, all WordPress post. And you can click through, you can do filters. I'm gonna go edges and node. This is kind of how you get to your posts. We'll go with ID. Let's grab ID. Let's grab the title and let's grab the content. And let's run this query. All right, so now we were able to run that and somebody add a new post. So here we are. Thanks for the post. Gridsum is awesome. I have tried Gridsum. And yeah, so hello world, welcome to Jammy Jam is our first post we have here. Here's a new post that one of you added. But it's cool. I support Gridsum. And yeah, so this is kind of Gatsby's way to show you where your data sources are and how you can get it. So now we have this query right here, which we'll keep in mind when we want to grab data in a second. Okay, so next step to this is we want to say, and we're running short on time, so I'm going to speed this up. We want to say, hey, Gatsby, I want you to go and loop through all of our WordPress posts and create static HTML files for all of those posts. So to do that, we are going to have a new file called Gatsby node. And this is kind of where you tell Gatsby, hey, programmatically create a bunch of new files for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, go loop through all of our WordPress posts and create HTML pages for them. So const path is equal to require path exports.create pages is equal to async. And this is kind of the format that Gatsby tells you to use. Const create pages, create page equals actions. All right, so that's kind of the default setup for Gatsby node. This create page function is going to tell Gatsby, hey, create an actual HTML file for what I'm about to give you. So const result is equal to await GraphQL. And here is where we can go grab that query and give it to Gatsby. Let's go in here, copy all that. All right, right there. All WordPress post, edges, node, ID, title, content. So go grab all that stuff, ID, title, and content. You can add more fields here to add to your template. I'm going to scroll down. Let's do a little bit more. If result.errors, console.error, result.errors. So just make sure that we're checking for errors, if I could spell errors right. And this is kind of where it gets a little bit wordy result.data dot all WordPress post dot edges dot for each edge. Okay, so what are we doing here? I'm basically saying go grab all of these posts, these edges, and loop over them. So for each right here, we're going back to our thing right here. Edges is an array right here, and we're just looping through. This is the first one. This is the second one. Okay. So back over dot for each, we're going to create a page and give it an object to kind of, my scrolling is all goofy. Give it an object to tell it what to do. Path is going to be edge.node.slug. Let's go look at what the slug created gives us. Oh, we didn't get a slug, did we? Okay, so let's go back here. And let's add some more stuff that we should have. ID, let's do slug and status. That should be good. Okay, so edge node slug. We have to give it a component. So I'm going to say path.resolve source templates post.js. And we haven't created this yet, but I'm basically saying, hey, Gatsby, go grab this JavaScript file, and that's what you're going to use as your page template. Context. Context is going to send some data to our template, edge node ID. There we go. All right, so all of this is so that we can loop over WordPress posts and create pages for them. And I'm going to speed this up even further. So if we go over to source, you have to create the source templates post.js source, new folder in here, templates. And we're going to go with post.js. Okay, so let's create this right now. We're going to import React from React. We're going to import GraphQL from Gatsby. And basically, we have to do a query here so that what happens is that we're going to pass in an ID to this post template, and then this post template will use that ID to go grab more data. So export const post query is equal to GraphQL. There we go. And we're going to go with query ID string, and this is just saying, hey, that's supposed to be a string post WordPress post ID equals ID. So hey, GraphQL, or sorry, so Gatsby, go grab this stuff, title and content, and that should be good. And the more you dig into Gatsby, the more you'll see that GraphQL is very much at the heart of it. And the final thing is we are going to create a React component to show this off. So export default function post. Data is going to come through as a prop. We're going to return h1 post.title. .title. And a div. And we're going to dangerously set inner HTML for HTML is post.content. Okay, so we have, oh, sorry, this is data.post.content. That makes sense. Okay, so we have enough for Gatsby to loop over our WordPress posts, and then here's a template and say, hey, Gatsby, use this template to create your post. Let's go over here. We're going to close that out, say Gatsby build, and that's going to run through all of this and create our production build. Okay, so we have our production build. We can do Gatsby serve, which will serve our production build. And I hope this is good enough to show. let's go hello world. And this is a static HTML page that was created from Gatsby that used our WordPress API that is live on online. And if you want proof that it's an actual static HTML file, you go over here. Public is the folder that Gatsby build creates. Go down here. Index.html is our main homepage. And if we go up here, hello world, index.html, this is that hello world, welcome to Jammy Jam. This is your first post. So now we have a fully static HTML page that we can serve anywhere. And I wish I had more time, but we had a couple different things to do. We could have created a Strapi Headless CMS. And if we look at Strapi, Strapi is really, really cool because of the way their CMS is built. And I know I'm speeding now, I'm sorry. So we have, I don't even remember what. Okay, so Strapi is really cool because it's a little different than WordPress. WordPress is very much a blog sort of as a foundation. Strapi is a different tool that lets you build your content types. So there's permission post role user. I can say, hey, create a new content type. I want to call it a book. Continue. And then I want to say, okay, so let's add text. Let's call this the title of the book, right? Let's add another field. Let's do text. Let's do content of the book. That'll be long text. Let's do relationship, which it'll be like a user or something like that. So the author of the book. And now we have immediately created a new content type really quickly. And then you could pull all of this from your Gatsby application using another Gatsby plugin. So I know I sped up at the end there, but let's replay our slides. Hosting a static site. You can host your Gatsby site on DigitalOcean, and it's always beneficial to put a CDN in front of a static site so that your CDN can kind of deliver your static site all over the place. So you would definitely want to maybe put Cloudflare in front of there. Netlify is also a great place to host a static site. Our summary, lots of great options for the A, which is Headless CMS, anywhere you want to store content. DigitalOcean one-click apps can help to build out your Headless CMS. And this is kind of my big takeaway from building Scotch is focus on what makes you and your company great. Definitely don't focus on building a CMS when there's already hundreds already built, right? And that's the benefit of JAMStack is that you can offset things you don't want to do to things that have already been done, like WordPress, like Ghost, like Strapi. And you can focus on your content using a static site generator and design. Going further with the JAMStack, I know we've offset our CMS to another product, but you can do more than just your CMS. You can create serverless functions so that you can create a little bit more dynamic stuff. Authentication, you can pass off to another company. E-commerce, Stripe and Braintree are here for you. Search, Algolia is here. So a lot of really great companies are kind of helping out build this JAMStack world. And I think the final takeaway is JAMStack lets me focus on what I want to focus on. And that's why I really appreciate JAMStack. I hope this was helpful in giving you options for headless CMSs and where you can store your content. And I hope that kind of my journey learning and building Scotch can help you build your own products and whatever you want to do. So thanks for coming to the webinar. If you have any questions, we'll be taking questions. Definitely throw them into the chat. And yeah, I'm here. I'm hanging out.
Chris, do you see the questions in the chat window, or do I need to somehow forward those to you?
I do not see the chat window.
Let me I'll state a couple ones, and the webinar is officially supposed to end in a couple minutes. So I'll just say, if you submitted a question, we haven't answered it, I would encourage you to visit our DigitalOcean community website. You can submit questions there, and maybe someone from DigitalOcean, maybe others in the community will be able to help you. But in these few minutes that remain, I'll ask if Chris can speak to a couple things. One topic I thought was interesting to address, Chris, someone asked, how would you deal with site personalization and things like A/B testing for statically generated websites?
Right. So the cool thing about it is that even though they're statically generated, it's not that there's no JavaScript client side. It's just that the majority of the work that needs to happen is done statically. So what I mean by that is you can generate the site statically. So, I mean, users don't have to wait for me to hit my database to go get content, to generate a view, and then to ship that view out, right? So we can automate that entire thing and generate an HTML page for that part of the process. But after that, Gatsby can still let you add JavaScript on top of your static site. So adding in like JavaScript real-time search with Algolia can happen after your HTML page is served. Authentication can happen after your HTML page is served. So A/B testing, and I wish I had a good company to kind of shout out to do it, but you can definitely do all that stuff client side and then see those results on the client side instead of just, yeah. So, I mean, this goes hand in hand with extra JavaScript after the HTML side. There's another link I can send in the chat. This GitHub repo right here is really good because it shows off different JAMStack type companies and tools that are out there. Static site generators, CMSs that we've talked about, but API is really cool because you can add comments after an HTML page is served. Authentication forms are really cool. E-commerce is in there, search is in there. But yeah, I wish they had a list of A/B testing type stuff, but you can add that after the fact. Maybe Crazy Egg and Hotjar are good ones.
I'll ask you another question, Chris.
Sure.
How would you describe, the behavior of, say Gatsby, in the event that your backend, if it's WordPress or whatever, if there's an outage?
Of the WordPress side or the Gatsby side?
On the backend side, so the WordPress side.
Sure. The cool thing about that is if there's a server-side outage, if you had generated your HTML files like, I don't know, 2 days ago, you're still serving those HTML files and it doesn't, your backend doesn't matter until you want to regenerate your site. So there's no like fire that happens if the backend goes down because your HTML files are still living and serving to your customers. You would just have to fix your backend, but you would have like the time to do it, right? Because it doesn't affect the front end.
That makes a lot of sense. Another topic I think is interesting to address, I saw someone ask, have you tried this approach with heavy content WordPress websites, 100,000 plus posts? In general, if you can speak to any examples of extremely scalable JAMStack implementations, I think that would be beneficial.
Right. So the problem with doing, and Scotch has only had like 2,000 posts max, and generating that does take a little bit of time, but the generation is the problem with large content sites. The generation of new HTML files and also the updating of individual files is the problem. And Gatsby is working on that. Let me take it back. It's basically build time is the problem. So Gatsby has released a tool called Gatsby Cloud. And let me see if I can add a link to that. Interesting. So Gatsby Cloud is right here, gatsbyjs.com. They have 2 tools here that they have been working on because they know that build time and updating individual posts or content is their problem. So real-time previews, it'll help you kind of update things because you can see what's going on. You don't have to rebuild the entire site to see what changes are happening. And also builds, I wish I had the numbers, but if you search for Gatsby builds like announcement, they talk about a bunch of sites that like their build time went down from 45 minutes to like 4 minutes for an entire new build on large scale sites. So Gatsby's working on it. The problem is the build time and individual updates.
All right, I'll ask you one more. And Chris, since you are the founder and architect of Scotch.io, someone asked just what front end does Scotch currently use?
Scotch is currently still more of the monolithic type application. It's a Laravel application. Server side and front end are very closely tied together. So I tried to make a JAMStack site without making a JAMStack site maybe 2 years ago. And what we landed on is it would have been a little bit of work to update the entire site for Gatsby, right? Which I think I eventually want to do. But what we did was we have PHP still running on most requests, and then we have Cloudflare sitting in front, and Cloudflare says, okay, I'm going to cache the entire HTML page. So that's kind of like our HTML static site solution. So yeah, it's PHP that serves HTML by building it on request, and we have React that sits on top for real-time search, authentication, stuff like that.
All right, well, I think we're at time. So again, if you submitted a question and we didn't have a chance to address it, please do post on the DigitalOcean community site, and hopefully someone will be able to get to it there. So thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Chris. Chris, anything more you want to add?
No, I mean, same as you. If you have any questions, definitely visit us on community. I'm over at Scotch and DigitalOcean, Chris on Code on Twitter if you want to hang out there. But yeah, thanks for coming.
All right, that's a wrap.
All right, bye everybody.